Hi everyone, I'm Winston Wilkins, founder of Startup Robot, and we're focusing on helping micro entrepreneurs around the Caribbean have better access to capital. One of the ways that we do that is through the e-commerce space, particularly giving entrepreneurs options in how they accept credit cards and other types of payments online. And with that, we have as our guest today, Christopher Burns. He is the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce. And if you've ever attempted to set up a bank account to accept credit cards in the Caribbean, you may have come across First Atlantic Commerce. So we're going to ask him a few questions today about how to best navigate the space based on his experience and some of the options that we have available. Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mike.
No problem. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started? How did this all begin for you, and what are you intending to do in the Caribbean with First Atlantic Commerce?
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and hello to everybody. So as you right said, I'm the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce. I've been actually with the company for 16 years now. Yeah, so much longer than I ever intended, but it's been a really interesting ride. And I've had various positions within the company, and I took over as CEO seven plus years ago, coming up to 8 years now. So we, at that time, you were really focused on a number of different geographies around the world as a business. So we are a Bermuda-based company. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of a much larger group of companies. So they kind of leave us alone to operate as a small sort of nimble software company. But we have the backing of a much larger group behind us as well. So we historically, we're operating in Europe, as far afield as Mauritius, some in the US, a little bit in the Caribbean, a little bit in Central America, a little bit in Canada. And you know, when I took over as CEO, we really wanted to refocus the company to really provide our services as a payment gateway, as an e-commerce payment gateway to the Caribbean and Central America. So at that point, we were only really connected to one bank in the Caribbean. We had one bank in one country in Central America. And then sort of fast forward nearly 8 years, we're connected to pretty much every e-commerce acquiring bank within the English-speaking Caribbean. We have Puerto Rico as an option now. We have Dominican Republic coming online relatively soon. And we're also in every country in Central America now as well. So we've really grown our footprint within the region. And you know, as a gateway provider, you know, really the holy grail is to be connected to as many platforms as possible. And you know, on a global basis, that's really difficult because there are just so many banks in so many countries and so many different platforms. So we really focused on making the sort of Caribbean and Central America, you know, our hub. And we've done a really good job in terms of connecting to all the different banks and a large number of merchants and different sort of e-commerce platforms that serves the region as well.
So the next question that I have is, what have been some of the, let's say, difficulties with accepting credit cards, doing e-commerce in the Caribbean compared with somewhere like a Delaware?
So in the US, there's a couple of major, what we call credit card processors, which is the platform that we connect to on the back end of our gateway. So in the US, there would be sort of First Data, well now Fiserv, you know, Global Payments, which also acquired big companies like TSYS. So there's been a lot of consolidation in the US as far as payment processors are concerned. And in the US, for example, you know, if you connect your gateway to one of them, you're going to be able to provide your services, you know, right throughout the US, cover multiple banks, and you just maintain one single connection. In the Caribbean, every bank uses a different processor. So that was one of our major challenges, was to look at this and say, okay, well, how do we connect our platform to make it service whichever bank our customers want? So we never really wanted to be in a situation whereby we had to mandate which bank that the merchant would have to open their e-commerce merchant account with. So that was our first sort of major challenge. And so, okay, now we have to connect our platform to 5, 6, 7, 8 different processing platforms, which is it's work that we know really well, and we're very good at it now. But it took a number of years to actually get that in play. So now we are certainly in the Caribbean, the gateway to all banks within the Caribbean. So that was the first major hurdle. The second was making sure that we connect to relevant platforms, website developers, shopping carts. So people like WordPress, Shopify, 3D Cart, Magento, because especially for the merchant base that's in the Caribbean, which is usually sort of micro or SME type merchants, a lot of our clients want platforms that are easy to connect. So don't want to spend a lot of money on software development. So we've then had to work with different partners to create these plugins to different shopping carts. So it's really easy and cost effective for people to be able to get online and accept payments right throughout the Caribbean.
So our audience is our micro entrepreneurs, more than likely.
Right.
And they're going to be selling services, or they're going to be redistributing products.
Okay.
We want to be able to have a simple way or the simplest path to be able to set up a store and accept credit card payments from zero. They may just have an idea, or they may have an existing brick and mortar business, and they want to be able to take their business online. What's the easiest way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really great question, because there are a lot of micro merchants within the Caribbean, and that was one of the challenges that we saw when we were rolling out our platform, because it is a very sort of big functional platform, and we were getting a lot of inquiries. Okay, well, we're a one-person shop, and we just want to be able to sell a few goods and services. We don't necessarily need a full-blown website, the e-commerce payment gateway. We don't have a relationship necessarily with the bank to open the e-commerce merchant account. So there's a lot of different options that can be thankfully now used within the Caribbean for that. So there are platforms like that are marketplaces, really, to allow you to be able to simply upload your products or services within that environment and say, okay, I don't necessarily need to build a website. I don't need to do a payment gateway integration. I don't need to necessarily open an e-commerce merchant account, because this platform has already done it all for me. So examples that I could give would be Cool Market, which is run out of Jamaica. There's another one called Carib Shopper that has come to light recently. There's another one called Shop Carib, which is in a similar vein. And there's another one that is another marketplace called eCaribbean Online. And all of those platforms basically give you this virtual store, which you can upload your products in and have sold for you online. So it's a really nice, easy way to do that. Go back several years ago, those types of platforms weren't available within the Caribbean, and people wanted to use Amazon or eBay or, but the issue with those platforms is, they weren't really tailored to our region, right? They were tailored just to North America and bigger markets in South America, like, Mexico or Brazil or Argentina. So now there are a lot of options out there for the micro merchant to be able to do that. So if you want to be able to take that route, that's a really great way to do it. There are other products out there that we support and power the payments for, something like Figaro. Now, Figaro is a partnership we've had in place for a number of years now, and there are multiple options that you can choose from the Figaro platform depending on what type of business you are. So the most sort of base function within it is what we call an active invoicing product, where you can literally create a profile within the Figaro system, put in your products and or services within there, and then put your customer details within the system. And when you want to be paid for whatever service you've provided, so a good example would be maybe a taxi driver or a plumber or an electrician that simply needs to send an invoice to somebody for services rendered, and then get paid simply online. So you can create that profile within Figaro and email out that invoice to your customer. But in that invoice is a payment button that's specifically linked to that invoice. So when that person gets that invoice, rather than it sort of sitting in their inbox for 30, 60, 90 days, because they've got to go online and make a payment or send a check or meet somebody in person and give them cash, which of course right now is even more difficult. You can simply click on the payment button and then a secure payment window pops up, and you just simply enter your card details in and you pay the invoice, and then it will automatically update the Figaro system to say that invoice has been paid.
Okay.
Now, you can also use the payment buttons to drop into WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. You can put them on Facebook. You can put them in Instagram in your bio link. So there's, again, if you're a small merchant, and some merchants just purely run their business via WhatsApp. This is a great product to be able to do that, because if they say, hey, I want that T-shirt, you can simply create the payment button associated with that T-shirt in the Figaro system and drop it into Messenger and send it out. And it's a really, really cost-effective way to do it. It's a really easy setup, and it's a really inexpensive way to be able to get paid online. Okay. And then you can build that product up into a full-blown web store if you wanted to as well. So they have a product called Figaro Shops, which is very similar to Shopify, where you can choose your template, look and feel of how you want your website to look, drag and drop your content within there, your About Us section, your terms and conditions, pictures of your products. And then that shop is already pre-integrated to FAC from a payment gateway perspective. So then you can get access to all the banks that you would need on the back end there. And then also it's pre-integrated to DHL's API. So it will do real-time calculation of shipping. So if you're shipping internationally, you can set up a DHL account, and all of that is pre-integrated. So you don't need any real technical skills to be able to do it. Just need a little bit of time. And then the Figaro support team is really good. And you don't need to integrate into a payment gateway, because that's already done to us. The one thing that you do still need to do is get an e-commerce merchant account set up with your bank of choice. And that is so you can receive the funds from those payment buttons or the web shop that you're going to build. So you still need to go through that process.
Let's say I don't have an e-commerce merchant account. I have a regular bank account.
Yeah.
With the bank.
Yeah.
I tell my bank that I want to be able to have an e-commerce merchant account. They will carry me through some steps to find out how my business works, and how I'm intending to run, let's say, credit card payments or accept some sort of payments on the internet. So they'll probably ask me about security. Where am I storing my customer data? What am I intending to sell? How much volume I'm expecting to run through this payment gateway on a monthly basis. In your experience, why are they asking for those questions, asking me those questions?
Yeah, good. Another great question. And we get asked that a lot as well. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to see, specifically the business that they're going to be ultimately contracting with. So if you have a checking account, applying for an e-commerce merchant account is very similar to applying for a corporate account with a credit facility.
Okay.
And they want to make sure that you have if you're a startup business, that you have a solid business plan. They would like to see your projections, so in terms of volumes and how you're financing the business potentially. what you're doing from a website perspective, because that's really important to them, because they want to make sure that you're using, known suppliers, you're securing the website, because you're going to be dealing with credit card data, which is really sensitive data. And they want to make sure that they as a bank are not going to run into any fraud issues with you as a merchant. So they want to see what you're selling as well, because they have an acceptable list of products and services that they'll offer e-commerce merchant account services for.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to make sure that that's working for them. And then one of the big reasons that they go through all these checks is chargebacks. Now, a chargeback is basically a function whereby the cardholder can go to their bank and say, I don't recognize this transaction on my statement. I did buy from this website, but I never received the goods. Or if I did receive the goods, they weren't as advertised. Or if they've had a really poor customer service experience, they might charge back that transaction. So what that means is that once they process that chargeback, they're going to go to a section that says, okay, the bank is going to automatically debit your merchant account for those fees, and then it's up to you as the merchant to prove that cardholder actually did that transaction, or you did deliver the goods. So things like making sure that you get a signature on delivery, or if you're providing, some sort of service, that you get some sort of confirmation back from the person that you provided the service to that you didn't indeed provide that service. So a signature on a piece of paper or an invoice, for example. So that, and a chargeback can occur up to 180 days, so 6 months from the day of the original transaction. So the bank looks at that and says, okay, well, what is my risk exposure on having this client? And they say, okay, well, based upon the industry they're in, number of transactions they're doing, where they're selling to, they will sort of make a risk assessment and say, obviously the worst case scenario is every transaction gets charged back. That never happens. So what they do is they look at something called chargeback ratio, which is basically percentage of chargeback to sales. So what you need to do is ensure that your chargeback ratio is less than 2%. Otherwise, you're at risk of losing your merchant account and potential fines. So that's why, that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's why they want you to go through that process, so they can make sure that they're not putting themselves at too much risk. So it's kind of like getting applying for a loan with the bank. They want to make sure that they're going to be loaning money to somebody that they feel confident is going to pay them back.
Is the technology that you guys sell, or the partnerships that you guys are involved with, does it help the bank make the decision to give you that merchant account, or are you pretty much on your own with answering those questions to the bank before taking up a solution like a Shopify or a Figaro or any of the other marketplace platforms that you mentioned?
Yeah, so it definitely helps. So if you're not using a marketplace platform, you're not having to apply for your own merchant account in that case. So you're not having to go through that step. So if you're a smaller merchant, that marketplace might be the way to go. And if we get a lot of questions from merchants before they go to the bank, because they want to have their strategy completely lined out. So if you go to the bank and say you're going to use First Atlantic Commerce as your payment gateway, that's going to go a long way with the banks, because they know us. They've been working with us for years. They know we go through all the PCI compliance that we're supposed to do as a gateway. We are the preferred payment gateway for pretty much most of the banks. So they know us, they trust us. So if you're coming in there saying you're going to use First Atlantic, that's going to check a big box for the bank. The next thing they'll want to see is, if you're developing your website yourself, or you're having somebody else do it, they're going to want to make sure that that they are They are, a reputable company. Maybe they've seen them before. Have they developed websites before? Have they integrated to payment gateways before? And they make sure they're using the right, SSL certificates to secure the site. So yeah, that technology is definitely, if you can lay that out and already know which direction you're going in when you apply for the e-commerce merchant account, that's really going to help with the process. And we're always there to help, because the banks will have questionnaires about that when you apply, and we're always there to help answer those questions from a technology standpoint.
So just so you've answered some questions about regarding the checklist.
Yeah.
But on the issue of the chargebacks, because that seems like such a big issue, what can merchants who are using First Atlantic Commerce, having a developer that is approved by the bank or recognized by the bank, what is the next thing that they can do to help reduce the chargeback when the bank asks them?
So
ask them about that.
Some of that will be in terms of your terms and conditions and your policies and procedures as an online business.
Okay.
So what you really want to work with your customers to avoid the chargeback. So do everything you can in terms of if there is a complaint, understanding what the complaint is, maybe refunding the transaction if the person is particularly upset, or reissuing a product if they didn't actually receive the product, or if it was a faulty product in the first place. And then if you're delivering products, make sure that you get a signature upon delivery. With your terms and conditions, make sure that is a checkbox that has to be checked before they can move on to actual payment, to prove that the person has accepted the terms and conditions of your products and service. And then when it comes to technology, so most of our banks support 3D Secure. It's otherwise known as Verified by Visa or MasterCard Secure Code. And it was a product that the card associations put out many years ago to basically help assign like an online PIN or password to your credit card. So if the card that you have is enrolled in 3D Secure, and then you go to a merchant that's also enrolled in 3D Secure, it will ask you for your password. So when you go to put your payment, it will ask you, it will come up with a familiar phrase and say, okay, what's your password? What's your PIN that's associated with this card? And then we will take that data and authenticate it. So it's just an extra layer of security on the front end. Now, a lot of banks in the Caribbean don't support it on the issuing side, on the card side, but most of them support it from the acquiring side or accepting transaction side. So if you enroll with 3D Secure via our gateway and your bank that's providing your merchant account service, you will have certain protections from chargebacks, even if the card that's done the transaction is not enrolled. So in the background, we're going to check every transaction to see if that card is enrolled. And if that card is not enrolled, or what we say, so the issuer doesn't participate, you will still have certain automatic liability shift rights on that transaction just because you checked, because you are a 3D Secure merchant. You've taken the step to say, I want to secure these transactions. So it's an incentive for you as a merchant to enroll in the 3D Secure program and use the 3D Secure product in our gateway. So if a chargeback comes in for a certain reason code, like I didn't do it, or I don't recognize this transaction, which is about 75% of all chargebacks, those chargebacks will automatically be represented back to the issuer of the card and say, nope, they tried to authenticate 3D Secure under the liability shift rules. We're not even going to process the chargeback. So you do have that level of protection. So it's a good tool to help protect you from those type of chargebacks. And then if you want to be even more proactive on the front end, we have product called Count, which is an anti-fraud platform. So it basically takes a number of different data points on a transaction and puts it through the algorithm of the Count system and the AI system, and will give you a score on whether or not it thinks it's a good or bad transaction. So it will take things like, it will recognize the device that the transaction is being performed on, whether it's seen it before, how many email addresses it might have seen with that before, how many card numbers it might have seen from that particular device before. If there is chargeback data put into the Count system, it will say, well, hold on a second, we've seen chargebacks from transactions initiated from this device before. It has proxy piercing software. So if the person is saying, I'm in Jamaica, but really they're in Vietnam, trying to create some sort of fraudulent transaction on your website, it will be able to pierce through that. And then ultimately all that data comes back together again, and it will give you a score. So 1 to 50 is, yep, that's good. We think that's a good transaction. You should accept it. Anything from 60 to 100, or you can automatically reject those transactions. So the idea being that you're cutting out the fraudulent transactions up front to stop chargebacks from happening later.
Okay. All right. So this is fantastic. What it's sounding like is, if I want to be a merchant in control of my customer experience, then I need to have that First Atlantic Commerce as an approved payment gateway. I have to have a developer that is approved by the bank that's going to be issuing my merchant account. And I'm going...
Sorry to interrupt there. They don't necessarily have to be approved by the bank per se, but if you're using somebody that has done it before, it's going to go a long way to help.
Okay. How do you know? How can they know if they've done it before?
So the question is, and we see this a lot, where people will, say, you know what, I have a friend that knows something about computers, and he's going to help me build my website or do my integration, and then the project just goes on for months, and they don't know how to do the integration, and so so it's really upon you as a merchant to really qualify, use somebody that has definitely done it before, and ask them for examples of what they've done, or ask them if they've specifically integrated to us. So we've worked with a lot of software developers within the Caribbean that have done work and integrated into our gateway. So you can certainly check with us and say, do you know this company? Do you know this developer? And we can quickly tell you whether we've had a good experience or bad experience with them, or if we don't know them at all.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. So then so having a developer that knows what they're doing, either verified by the bank or verified by First Atlantic Commerce, is a good step in that direction of developing your own solution. And then to avoid chargebacks, just making sure that you have proper terms and conditions that speak to how you're delivering your service, what is the refund policy on your service, whether it is 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, just so that somebody understands that 6 months is not what the terms and conditions will be agreeing to, and being able to verify the customer's intent, so signature on delivery, accepting the terms and conditions before the delivery, or is it before the credit card payment?
Before the payment. I think that's usually the best policy.
No problem. So before the payment, and then finally, having 3D Secure on the technology side to be able to get additional verification from the customer before a purchase, so that if the customer says, no, I didn't purchase this, you can point to 3D Secure and say, this is why we know that you purchase this thing, because you not only verified with your card, but you also verified with your 3D secure code. Does that sound about right so far?
It does. It's 3D Secure. Yes, if the card is also enrolled, it will definitely, you can point to 3D Secure and say, well, you put your, we verified your password. It was put in.
Okay.
If the card's not enrolled, really what it's going to do is protect you further down the line in terms of, say, okay, we tried to authenticate that card from that bank. They don't participate in 3D Secure, but I'm a 3D Secure merchant. And if somebody comes back with a certain chargeback reason code, you're going to be protected under liability shift rules.
Okay.
So that chargeback should never even hit your account. The issuer will try and put it towards the merchant, and then the bank will be able to say, no, sorry, this is a 3D secure transaction or attempt, and that you as the issuer have to eat that chargeback.
Oh, okay. And so this is where you're saying, I did everything I could to secure my side of it. It's on you to have secured your side. So the liability shifts from me as the small business doing my e-commerce site back to the issuing bank of the person who was trying to make the credit card payment. Does that sound about right?
Exactly right, yeah.
Okay, good. And then finally, you mentioned your technology solution Count, which is like an anti-fraud analysis software that looks at transactions associated with that card holder and see whether or not there are other questionable transactions that have been coming from that card, to be able to flag it and say, hey, this seems like a fraudulent transaction, need further due diligence, or I'm recommending that we reject this transaction. Is that?
Yeah, so you can set it up to automatically reject or approve. If you're a bigger merchant and you might have your own fraud team, so like airlines, for example, they can set it up to, if the score is right in the middle, they can say, okay, we want to manually review that transaction. So somebody within their fraud team can go in and have a look at it and see what triggered the system. Say, okay, why did we think this might be a fraudulent transaction? And it might be that you have a repeat customer that is actually trying to perform a transaction somewhere in a different country than they're usually in. They might be traveling, and they say, okay, no, we know this person, we trust them, we're still going to approve this transaction. Or it could be something else, and you say, no, actually, we're not comfortable with that. We want to reject the transaction. Or you can set it up to do it automatically on that side of it. And it could be other things in there as well. Like you can set rules in there to say, I'm not comfortable shipping product to somebody whose billing address is more than 50 miles away from their delivery address.
Okay.
So why would that be? Or if you're seeing multiple you can set velocity filters in there as well. So if you're seeing multiple transactions from the same card with a short space of time, that's usually a good indication of fraud.
Right.
Or if somebody has a huge range of email addresses associated with one particular device, that's usually an indication of fraud as well. Or if you're just seeing transactions for your highest value products on your website, again, that's another indication that somebody's trying to fraudulently purchase from your website. So there's thousands of rules you can set up within the system. So there are sort of pre-canned rules that you can use for smaller merchants for certain industry types.
Right.
So if you just want to sort of set it and forget it, you can do that. But if you want to scale up your business and you're suddenly selling to multiple countries, you have a lot more transactions coming in, you build the solution around the growth of your business. So it's designed to protect you, so you can still sleep at night and feel comfortable selling, but it's not going to lock everything down so tightly that you're rejecting good transactions as well.
Okay. So Count sounds a lot like a feature in Stripe called Radar.
Okay.
And for those people who understand the Stripe ecosystem and want to be able to try e-commerce in the Caribbean, Count sounds like a great alternative to those features in Stripe.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I'd say that's absolutely right. So, we did, when we were looking for an anti-fraud system, we looked at a whole bunch. So, familiar names would be things like Certify, CyberSource, Retail Decisions, 41st Parameter. Radar is built into the Stripe product. So yeah, I mean it's very similar. So you can either use the base functions of it, or you can really put a very comprehensive anti-fraud strategy into it.
Okay. So if someone were to help out the ecosystem, it would be about putting a list together for developers. It would be about having some good templates for terms and conditions and refund policies, and to be able to have some good walkthroughs of some of these solutions, like Figaro, like how 3D Secure is will work with a solution to protect a customer, and how a solution like Count would work with anti-fraud. Because basically what you're saying is that all of the solutions that allow for a typical small business to do e-commerce online is available in the Caribbean. We just don't know it yet. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It
right?
is. It is. And that's why we've been around for a while, and I've spent half my professional career traveling around the Caribbean, trying to get the message out there. And we have various marketing initiatives and things like that. But I think there has been some desire, certainly within the region to want to get online and take payments and grow the e-commerce industry. But what we're seeing now is necessity, right? So we're seeing, okay, I can't go outside, and I still need to be able to run my business. So how do I do that? And e-commerce is perfectly positioned to help us through this. So we, as a business now, I've been doing a lot of sessions like this, either with our banks or with our marketing company, or with people that are heavily influenced in the space. And we're inundated with them. There's almost not enough hours in the day to keep up with the demand right now. So it's really encouraging to see. And I really hope that we're in a position now as a region where everybody realizes how amazing e-commerce is for running your business and growing your business and reducing costs. So a lot of people will talk about e-commerce is expensive. I don't want to do it. It's I don't know how to operate this. And we're here to say, no, actually it's not. If you have a brick and mortar business, you're paying rent, utilities, security guards, and you're only open for certain hours of the day. E-commerce helps reduce all those costs, and you're open to the world, 24/7, 365. So, we have this ability to say, okay, we there's a lot of great companies that are producing great products and services within the Caribbean, and not only can we make these more available within our own countries, but we can make them available to other countries within the Caribbean and beyond. And the products are there. So people will say, like, bemoan, like, well, we don't have PayPal in the Caribbean. I would argue and say you don't need PayPal in the Caribbean. We have all the products and tools and services that everybody needs domestically within the Caribbean. We don't need to rely on large US entities to be able to grow our e-commerce economy.
Right. Okay, good. So this was great. I'm seeing an opportunity for providing onboarding, easier onboarding for micro and small merchants to be able to do their business online. And it's something that we're going to be exploring much further on this channel and in our digital channels. So thanks so much for shedding so much light on the e-commerce space, Chris.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And
Really appreciate
I'm
it.
very passionate about the e-commerce industry in general. So I'm more than happy to talk people through it. You talked about a resource. Our website, firstatlanticcommerce.com, has all of those explanations on it. There's an FAQ section, there's a resources section, there's videos, instructional videos on there.
Okay.
And there's obviously the contact us page on there. So if you can't quite find what you're looking for, you can always contact us via email or phone or Zoom, as the case may be these days. So I'm hoping to be able to get back to Jamaica again some point soon. We'll just have to track it and see how we make out.
Yeah, let me know when you're in Jamaica. Hit me up. I'll take you for a beer.
Yeah, excellent. I like that.
All right, cool.
Have to do it.
Yeah, man. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Stay safe.
Yeah, man.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye. Thanks so much for joining us today. We covered a lot about the world of e-commerce in the Caribbean. All of the links that we've discussed are in the description below. For more content like this and for a deeper dive in some of the content that we covered today, subscribe to our channel and click that notifications icon so that you can be alerted every time a new video comes out. Startup Robot is committed to helping micro and small entrepreneurs have better access to finance. So let's keep the link. Thanks again.